Hello, Arslan. We are
Assalamu
live.
alaikum, dear ACCA members and future members. My name is Muhammad Arsalan Anwar. I am an ACCA and ICAP member, and today I'll be moderating a very important session on the issues faced by the manufacturing industry of Pakistan in the backdrop of the COVID 19 pandemic and the way forward, obviously. In this difficult time posed by the COVID 19 onset, where many of us have lost our loved ones and hence have suffered economic difficulties, we need to stay united and connected with our network as well. Uh, the manufacturing sector acts as the backbone of Pakistan economy. According to the data released by the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics of pre-coronavirus situation, when economic activities were not halted in the country or during the month of February, the large-scale manufacturing stood at 10.7% of the overall GDP. Large-scale manufacturing constitutes 80% of manufacturing sector in Pakistan. The situation has unfortunately taken a nosedive. GDP has suffered a 9.3% dive and stands at $264 billion from 284 billion dollars back in 2019. GDP has obviously seen a negative growth of 0.4%, and it had its consequent impact on the large scale manufacturing industry in Pakistan, which has unfortunately recorded a negative growth of 10.2%. And just to add to the plight, earlier today, I was reading the newspaper which said that Pakistan's economy has returned to the decade of 90s as the country's total debt and liabilities in percentage of GDP ratio has crossed the psychological mark of 100% and now stands at 106% of GDP by the end of June 2020. So the overall economic situation is there in front of us, and uh, people working in the industry, the professionals and the businesses as well, they have had their taste of the pandemic, and it brought many challenges along with it, and the challenges were obviously manifold. Yet there were certain opportunities, a silver lining that was to be seen in terms of new markets as well. So today's topic, we would primarily be looking at what kind of problematic situations surfaced during this pandemic and how our manufacturing industry, the leaders within, and the businesses and the government reacted towards it. So, in order to just go ahead with our today's session, we have a very massive and powerful trio with us today, and our conversation leaders. Three of them, they come from very diverse backgrounds. One of them from the food chemicals industry, the other one from the export sector, and the third one from our electronic industry. So I'd be giving a brief introduction of my participants. We have with us Mr. Asdaf, Mr. Muhammad Asdaf, CFO. He is currently CFO at Rafhan Maize Products Company Limited, Faisalabad. To tell you, Asdaf is a very well-known finance professional in the manufacturing industry, and he has 25 years of vast experience to deal with all kind of financial matters, and has been working with top employers in Pakistan like Mondelez International, Muller and Phelps, and Philips Pakistan. The posts that he have held uh, and his experience in various organizations was a top notch, obviously. He has served as a director of finance in Mondelez International. So we are very delighted to have you around, Asdaf. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Second in line, we have a very prominent guy from Sialkot, Mr. Imran Sharif. He's an FCCA and currently serving as CFO and company secretary of StarPak Martial Arts Private Limited. Mr. Imran is heading their accounts and finance department, a company with a 50 million, $5 million revenue in exports, all the way from Sialkot. and the company is the leading manufacturer and exporter of martial art goods for a very well-renowned brands such as Century, Ringside, Title, Fuji in the United States. And third in line, we have Mr. Abdul Shakoor with us. Mr. Abdul Shakoor is currently serving as the CFO of Toshiba TV Pakistan, and he's also the regional director of IFA UK. Mr. Abdul Shakoor have had a great alliance with with Boss Electronics lately, and they have recently launched their new Toshiba TV series in Pakistan. And he is very well positioned to talk about the electronic industry in Pakistan, the way they are assembled, and where this company has actually been able to set foot in Pakistan in a very great manner. So I welcome all of you on in this session, Shakoor
Thank you.
and Chansab. We are very reverent
Thank you.
around with us. Okay, let's start with our session. Fine. Uh, my first question is I'm putting up my first question to Mr. Asdaf here. Uh, Asdaf, you have been working for a long time in Mondelez International Law, and you look at things uh, in a manner where you are being able to handle things from the forerunners front. You're the first guy who stood in front of this pandemic as far as your own company was concerned, and that now that your company is not only in the food industry, but it is also providing a lot of products to the textile industry, the paper industry, and the corrugated paper industry of Pakistan. And as we are all well aware, that the textile industry happens to be one of the major export sectors of Pakistan. The last time I remember that in a policy statement by government of Pakistan, it was said that they're planning to take exports of textiles to a mark of $25 billion in Pakistan. And it's a great mark as comparison to where we stand right now. So this pandemic situation obviously have had its impact on your organization as well, and it must have posed a lot of challenges in many areas of, say, working capital, capex management, finances, fund management. It have had an impact on your sales as well. So, how, as a industry leader, taking the impact right from the very out front, how were you being able? What kind of challenges were there? How did it impact your business, your own specific industry, and how did you manage them?
Okay, thank you, Arslan. Thank you for the introduction and ACCA for providing this opportunity. I think it's a very important question. You know, after probably 1930, the Great Depression of 1930, this is the biggest incident or event which has taken place in the history, and I think recently, if you see, very few events will have a global impact, and this is what has happened in the case of COVID-19. So we were also faced with the same kind of challenge when the lockdown started. There was a lot of confusion around the closure of industries, what industries were treated as essential, what industries were not treated as essential. And for us, safety of our employees was a paramount, importance and priority. And what we did immediately was to, kind of trigger the crisis management committee, which was, the leadership team of the company, plus people like the plant managers. And we would meet every day to review the situation at the plant and, of course, in the business also. Continuity was a big challenge. So, we worked around that. And we were extremely lucky. We reduced our teams in the plant. We sent all our head office or non-essential staff home. to work from home. They were given laptops. They were given the tools to remain confined at homes and be able to still work and provide support to the operations. Being the largest or a significant player in the market, our responsibility was to make sure that we are able to supply the products to diversified industry, whether it was food, whether, as you said, industrial segment like textile and paper and corrugation. So despite the fact a lot of industrial businesses were closed down, we still kept on producing goods just to make sure that there is no disruption at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And April and May were very difficult for us. We lost something like 40% of our volumes. And in the first half, we lost something like, 11, 12% of our volumes because of COVID. And there were instances where our goods, which were shipped to our customers, were not accepted at the gate because the district administration was there. They stopped from the companies from receiving them. So we had to take them back. And similarly, our local management was, I would give a lot of credit to them. They were far more agile. They immediately got in touch with the local administration. They were able to get permission from them to run the operations because we were supplying goods to food industry. So we were able to get the license, the permissions. We were able to make sure that our employees were able to reach the factories. We set up all the necessary SOPs, which were announced by the government and even by us as part of the global company. So thermostats, thermometers, temperature systems were installed on the gates. So people were checked for, they were given masks, uh, marking were done in the production area, social distancing was followed there. Uh, we actually doubled our transportation for the workers, so people can have social distance when they are sitting in the buses. And we continue to run our plants. And with a lot of player, we got appreciations from a lot of our customers at the end for being able to supply them the products on time and during those difficult days, so they could run their operations. But yes, we still had challenges. Textile business was shut down in a lot of cases. Trade, cottage industry, they were the biggest impacted areas. And uh, irony was that 90% of the daily wages were actually left unemployed at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
all
that's true.
this crisis, I mean, the manufacturing was still lucky, but look at the service industry. They were the ones who were badly impacted, service industry and hospitality. So a lot of people lost their jobs, and this again resulted in huge reduction in consumption, which is an important element of any manufacturing organization. So we had a lot of challenges around that, but uh, Allah had been very, very gracious and kind. We managed to pull that through. And honestly, despite we have something like 1,200 permanent staff, and then there are the 1,500 to 2,000 third-party workers who come to the factory. We only had 4 COVID confirmed cases, and all of them were sent home. They were at home. They got better. They were able to resume their duties. There were another 29 suspected cases, but everybody was fine. So we went through this, quite well, if I think. Uh, and as a bigger player, we did a great job by keeping up the supply chain.
That's very good insight, Asdaf. I would also correlate an issue that was going on around in the company I work for. I'm working as head of internal audit at Master Tiles Ceramic Industries Limited. and we house an employees of around 3,000 employees in our factory, which work in 3 shifts. So what so happened at our company was that the district administration was actually quite worried uh, in regard to the pandemic spread from our factory. So what they did is they actually asked us to take these precautionary measures and asked us that why doesn't the company itself volunteers and presents itself for conducting the tests of the entire labor. So it was a
Oh,
big, massive task that we people confronted at that time, and our CEO took the step and just in order to remain on lines so that our kiln keeps on working and with a heart towards the laborers which uh, came to our factory from the adjoining areas of Kamoki and Muridke, we actually spent a good amount of 7 million rupees on actually conducting those tests. And then what actually sat right on the top of it was that we provided a private quarantine place to our employees who were suspected. So this is the kind of cost escalation that we people actually shouldered off. And not only does it impact our the overall business cost, it also has an impact towards the kind of social responsibility that we people are happy to shoulder off by the end of the day, despite it even had an impact on our costs.
Arsalan, what we did was we had actually set up very stringent guidelines to all the employees, and employees were clearly told if they have any symptoms, they will stay home.
Mm.
They will just call up the office, and all the business functional heads were made responsible to monitor. And so we facilitated the employees. We did not look at that they should submit their medical certificate. So anybody with any kind of symptom, whether it was cough or runny nose or fever, we did not ask them to go and get the test done. We just told them to carry out a quarantine themselves, and after 14 days they will be taken back on work if there are no more symptoms.
Mhm.
So that also gave a kind of reassurance to them, and we were able to support them, and maybe that's one of the reasons that the incidence was so low.
That's very spot on, Asdaf. Now, coming towards you, Imran, you are running a very successful business around in Sialkot in regard to the martial art products being exported out of Pakistan. And earlier today, when we were having a quick chat, you told me that it's a company who is actually pocketing $5 million dollars annually in turnover towards Pakistan's foreign currency reserves. So it's a great mark. So the export sector is set on very different footings in comparison to a manufacturing company using indigenous products and then supplying it in the Pakistani market. Uh, I can very well understand that the pandemic would have affected you in a drastically different manner. Uh, Putting up your goods for sale outside Pakistan, then the issues related to port clearance. And I came to know of certain instances where the clients at the other end of the table, they refused to receive those goods. Imran, you're there with us?
Yes, Lana, I hear you.
Hello.
Aslan, can you hear
Uh,
me?
yes. Did you get my question, Imran? I was just getting
I just
along.
missed the last part. I just missed the last part.
Okay. What I was sharing was that
Hmm.
export sector of Pakistan, obviously backed up by the manufacturing operations based out of Pakistan, they are very differently positioned in comparison to those companies who are procuring their products locally and then selling in the local market. So, what kind of challenges did you face? Your company actually face? We would like to know them, and how did you position yourself to uh, get along and to fare with these challenges that were there in front of you?
Thank you, Aslan, for providing me the opportunity. The year 2020 will be remembered in the human history for its kind of major disruptions that has been affected, not to the business, but to the lives of the human beings. So, like everybody else in our industry, which because we are mostly connected with the foreign customers, and by the start of February, we are start to get the hang of the things, because most of our customers were hesitant to take further to place further orders, and some of them was hesitant to take the existing orders which we were already produced for them. uh, so by the end of February, the situation was looking dicey in that respect, and obviously we have to start planning for that. We have to scale down our production, seeing the further requirements are not coming through, and then on 24th March, when the country goes into lockdown, and that was actually not we were not expecting that soon to come, uh, but we have to face that. Uh, the problem that we faced was that the inventory that we had, uh, we could not get that inventory through to our foreign customers, because all our ports were closed, and also the interprovincial transport was closed. So the inventory is there laying in our premises, for that matter.
So, Imran, how did you
And
feel with the situation? How did you come out of it?
you know, first thing we have to do, the another thing is that, okay, that there is a lockdown, we can't manufacture anything, in that regard. uh, First of all, we the thing we have done, that we keep communicating with our customers, and many of our customers also face the similar problems that we are facing. They were
Obviously,
also in the
something
lockdown.
that happened on the both ends.
They were not doing any businesses, their godowns are closed and everything, but we keep very close lies on with them. And also the local level, the challenges that we faced was regarding the disruption in the supply chain, because we procure all our material from the local manufacturers, but
Mm.
they were in the lockdown, so that thing is gone. So what actually the thing in that respect, what thing that saved us, I think, but luckily from the last year, we have actually established our online presence
Yes.
on the Amazon and the eBays, on that, because prior to that, our mostly concern was to B2B business.
Mm.
And from the last year onward, we just venture out, let just thinking that let's try B2C, what happens, because
Mm.
the world is going online and the online trend is getting up, so why not, let's try that. So luckily we established our presence last year, around, I think, June, July, in that respect. And what we observed, that during the lockdown, our demand in the B2C sector actually increased
Acha.
for our goods,
Mm.
you know, and which was surprising. But once we analyze that, actually our goods, people who were in the lockdown in the Western countries, in the Europe, Americas, they were getting our sports goods to actually use them during their homes during lockdown, because they can't go to the market now, so they will go to eBay or Amazon and give the order to us, for that matter.
So I would rather say
So
it was an opportunity well capitalized by your company.
yeah, I would say that, and luckily we had that presence. And although it was before the lockdown, it was not going that well, but we are keeping it with our main operations on that. But so during the lockdown, that we observed that trend by the April, and we concentrated on that, because we make more arrangements with our foreign uh, uh, godowns, warehouses that provides our products, which we have stocked with them, and to ensure that the supply there to our customers did not disrupt. So that was the one opportunity that comes up, and actually it really changed the way we see our business, because previously our business was going in the traditional way, that we
Hmm.
supply to big clients and their godowns, and they then distribute to the local markets in their countries. But these opportunities actually showed us many ways that we can exploit in the foreign markets in that regard. So this thing that keeps us float in the lockdown period, uh, the business coming from the B2C section on that regard.
Yes, Imran,
And
this is the part where I'm sorry to interrupt you. This was the part where I was saying that there is a silver lining as well. Though we are matlab, under compulsion to pocket these challenges as well, but this the opportunity side is also very bright. You see, when I talked with a
yeah,
couple of peers around, they told me, Arsalan, that we never thought that we would ever find ourselves doing e-commerce thing. uh, the concept itself was pretty much alienated to us, yet we were actually pushed to adopt it. And now that we have, we find it that why we, the idea was, why on earth we were not doing it before. So this is something that has primarily taken a lot many of us in our businesses, and a new chain which was already present around people during this pandemic. They were actually pushed to join it, and I guess they are happy people now.
yeah, definitely. I think this is the blessing in disguise, you can say, uh, because if one door is shut, many new doors should open on that regard.
Thank you
And
so much, Imran. Uh, Let me now move towards Abdul Shakoor Saab. Abdul Shakoor Saab, you are heading the accounting and finance function of a leading brand in Pakistan, along with Boss Electronics. So I can very well understand that the electronics industry also have had the bitter taste of pandemic in its own aspect. What I read about it and I heard from people who were commenting on this industries, the lashback it took was that the electronic industry has suffered in many fold ways, and which has ultimately contributed towards the escalation of the cost of production. So what I have heard about it, you may build upon it, is that electronic industry is primarily working uh, on the assembly plants situated in various countries, and the parts they are procuring it. They were procuring it majorly from China and Taiwan. Now that the China was somehow the central region for pandemic, they were in a lot of uh, hassle and mess in that very tenure, because those people had never thought of introducing or establishing parallel supply chain platforms for themselves. Now that the China was all closed, it was a major challenge, in my own opinion, that establishing a parallel supply chain is not an easy task. And even if you do, actually procuring products back to the assembly plant in itself poses a bigger challenge. Uh, Not only on the procurement and supply chain side, I also came across a research which was saying that the electronic industry primarily they work in an assembly plant whereby people are conventionally sitting, say, zero point 0.6 meters apart from one another. Now that the pandemic SOPs were in place, it was, say, 2 meters apart. So now the assembly line, which was, say, 10 meters, for example, hypothetically before, now they would need to say, get it along to, say, 25 meters, because the 2 meter uh, distance would need a greater place to cover the entire thing. So apart from this escalating cost, procurement issues, supply chain, market, what kind of issues did your industry confront? And the most important aspect, how did you fare with it?
Thank you very much, Aslan sir, for the introduction, for the opportunity, and the ACC as well for the opportunity. And I will second your all things that you have talked about. Yes, as you said that the space in the assembly line was approximately zero point 0.6 meter, and now it has been increased. Uh, the local government also imposed a restriction on a labor as well, that you can call only 30% labor in your production line. So this was again a a big problem for us. So the second thing that you have mentioned, normally the electronic industry import semi-finished goods are the raw material from China, and
Yeah,
the exchange rate
massively,
is also
massively.
shifting in Pakistan. This has impacted a lot at large to the raw material. On the other side, as you said, that the China was closed, and this also caused a problem for the availability of the raw material as well for the Pakistan. And on the same time, the prices of the raw material and the semi-finished goods, particularly if you're talking about home appliances, the HDTV, there are normally two formats we import products. One is the CPU. This is not much over here in Pakistan, but the
I
another
see.
one is SKD, seminar unit, yes. So normally we import an SKD, and these SKD, in SKD we save some duties as well, but the exchange rate also impacted the SKD prices as well, and these prices were high on a very higher side, and the other thing, uh, as I talked about the availability of the raw material, then the cash flow management was a very big challenge for the electronics industry, as you have seen that the whole market of the Pakistan was in lockdown and no market was open. So as you have seen that we work normally on 30 to 60 or 90 days credit days. So the working capital management was an issue because all the markets were closed, and the customers or the dealers only can pay if they can get from the consumers. This
Hmm.
was a great challenge as well. So another issue was the uh, travel bans in the intercities as well, and the interprovincials and or the international travels as well. For example, in some cases, many industries or the many owners travel to China for just for rate purposes, for quality inspection purposes, just to
I
find
can
out.
understand that. I
Yes.
can understand.
So this was another issue, another challenge for our
How
industry.
did you come along, Abdul Shakoor?
Yes, actually, as you have seen that a parallel supply chain is not possible at this point in time and in a very short period of time. Yes, what we have did is our edge over the other competitors in the market was that we were having sufficient stock of the inventory of the finished goods. So this was a plus point as well as um, our case is concerned. So हमने बेसिकली एक तो अपने जो हमारे सपोज के हमारे पास 900 और 1000 कस्टमर्स थे, डीलर्स थे, तो उसमें को हमने रिड्यूस किया, हमने उसमें से सिलेक्शन की कि हम कितने लोगों को जो है वो ये अपनी सप्लाईज दे सकते हैं, और फिर उसमें से सपोज कि हमने कहा कि यार यस दीज आर द 300 डीलर्स, यस वी कैन गिव देम सप्लाई। तो हमने उसमें से सिलेक्शन की, सिलेक्शन करने के बाद हमने सिर्फ उन लोगों को जो कि एक वेल गुड पे मास्टर थे उनको सिलेक्ट किया, और फिर हमने कुछ प्रोडक्ट जो हैं जो कि हम लोकली प्रोक्योर कर सकते थे, हमने उनको भी लोकली प्रोक्योर किया कि हम चाइना के ऊपर जो हमारी डिपेंडेंसी थी वो उसको मिनिमाइज किया जा सके।
Sort of establishing another supply chain platform.
साट ऑफ
Sort
या
of.
कुछ हमारी आउटसोर्सिंग होती है, हम थर्ड पार्टी से आउटसोर्स करवाते हैं कुछ चीज़ें।
We can very well understand the kind of predicaments which actually followed after the onset of the pandemic itself. And one of the members I was talking to, he said, Arsalan, not every businessman was lucky enough to fare with it. To some, it was a death by thousand cuts, actually. So they saw a downfall in their sales, and actually, when the sales go down, it has the consequent impact on every nook and corner of your industry. So I
Yes,
can understand that very well.
yes, that's
Thank
right.
Let's move towards our next session of questions. And to me, it's very interesting because I am an accountant by myself. So, as accountants, we are all of us are actually shouldering of responsibilities in regard to our fiduciary duties and all other kind of stuff that we carry along being a professional ourselves. So one thing which is very important, which I want to discuss on this platform, and I'd like to know myself and for my audience as well, that how did you people fare with this pandemic, being in the capacity of an accountant or a finance professional. You see, what I understand is that once you are under the bullets, the pandemic is there, recovery is down, sales have nosedived, raw materials cost either they're not available or their cost has escalated by many folds. And we can also correlate the impact towards the escalating electricity costs and other materials which are required, and the kind of issues that we people were facing with regard to working capital management. You see, I came across a situation where though the company was not making any sales, yet uh, the kind of labor that they have already committed with raw materials availability with them, they were still under production. So, in order to produce this amount of inventory, where actually you're not selling it on, I mean, the warehouse management issues, working capital issues, certain machinery is being installed, and all this thing that actually comes onto the shoulders of the accountant and the finance leader himself. Say, there's a situation where the banks are not cooperating, and your CEO might have asked you that we want an immediate injection of fund, and you may have needed, you may have felt the need to reach the private fund holders to go for private debt financing. So these are all kind of situations where accountants and finance leaders actually had to act like a trailblazer and value add in the business, where the owners actually come to know that these are the people we rely on to for difficult times, and they have duly played their role as well. So how do you see, Asdaf Saab, I would be asking this question to you, uh, an agriculturally backed business connecting to many stakeholders around in and outside the country, how did your team play this role? And the finance team, you yourself, what did you do on the technological side, etc.? I'd like to hear from you on this side. Or what accountant should have done. Asad, I'm sorry, we're not being able to hear you. Prob- ah,
Sorry. As accountants, you have to support the business, and you have to, provide them advices where it is required, and be able to highlight the issues, and give insight. For us, working capital was, of course, a challenge, and as everybody also, Shakoor and Imran also mentioned the same thing. For us, with sales going down, we were sitting on inventories, and so was the case with our AR also. So working capital was an area where we had to focus a lot. And then there was still uncertainty. You were not able to see how things would be in the next 2, 3 months. April and May were the worst, but it started off in the last week of March. So we lost volumes in end of March, April, May, and we had to continue to produce also. So there were a lot of inefficiencies also around the production that was being done, especially in April. So what we tried to do was, we should maintain our inventories. We should produce those SKUs which are slightly below the minimum order level, and we will continue to kind of build the inventory, so tomorrow if there is any improvement, we don't run out of. And then also, look at the credit management, make sure that the funds, the sales that you are making, you are getting those recoveries made on time, and also allowing your bigger customers to get some leverage, because they were all going through the difficult time. Uh, and as we also had the same problems. We had shipped our exports to countries like Bangladesh, where they were stuck up at the port, and you were not getting the money, because they had some other kind of arrangements at the local level. So despite being LCs, we were not able to get the amount. So a lot of focus was on that, and the shareholders then played a very positive role. and they skipped the dividend for the first quarter, looking at the situation which was going on. So the shareholders decided that we will not take the dividend, and the company should have enough cash available with them to sail through this crisis. And we did that. Um, and we were able to immediately address, based on lower sales, although inventories and the working capital was on the higher side in April and May, but we were able to correct it immediately. So we brought down the purchasing targets. They were revised. The corn, which is our major raw material, we actually reduced the target for the year. So we took a lot of actions around that. So although yes, during this quarter our working capital had gone up, but we were able to manage it still at a comfortable level to kind of take us through this time. So yeah, and as you said, as accountants, we were providing insights to the management on timely basis, that they can look at they can look at the AR, they can look at the how the top customers are tracking, how are the dealers tracking, how is the inventories, which inventory items are on the higher side, which inventory items are on the lower side. So we were very kind of involved in the planning phase also with the management. So a lot of actions were taken. We were able to show to them the inefficiencies, and then we were able to advise them, where to cut down on production. We actually took some, there were phases where we decided to actually close down the plants for period of 2, 3, 4 days, and then when they are run at full level. So we can control the inefficiencies. And I think we did a great job in that regard. But in April, we had higher costs because they were inefficient. May was different, and we were able to build upon that. Similarly, with the Brent coming down again, the same thing. We saw the price and the costs going down in May, so we were able to take bigger shutdowns during May, one, to control the inventories also, and to make sure that the inefficiencies are on the lower side. So a lot of actions were done by the finance in this regard.
Thank you, Asdaf. The role of the finance professionals and accountants is very massive and major in supporting the businesses to come out of this pandemic. I've myself been through it, and I can very well understand how difficult the times would have been. Imran, coming towards you, uh, your business was also uh, faring with all this stuff. So I would also like to put up the same question with you. How did your accounts and finance team actually help the business through these times?
First of all, the account staff has to learn how to work from home. That was
Yes.
the first thing they have to learn, and that's what we have to do in the days of the lockdown. And because we have never done that before, all our stuff is done on the premises, and we have to arrange that because, as I say, our factory operations were closed, but our B2C operations were running on that. So we have to take care of their accounting as well on that. So we have to make
That was a
arrangements
new
that our
aspect
staff.
to accounting, I guess.
Sorry.
I said that is a new aspect to recording and
Yeah.
accounting.
Yeah, that's a new aspect, and also it gives us many insights as well. And also we have to make sure that the payments that we have to make to our workforce and the payments that we have to make to our local suppliers are not disrupted. So during the whole period of lockdown, we did not miss any single payment to our workforce and to our local suppliers. We have to maintain that working from home, or sometimes one or two people come into the plant and to do that. On the payment days, the cashiers has to come on the plant to disburse that, keeping in view of the SOPs that were in place in that regard. On that, so
I
there
can
was the
understand.
So that was the challenges that the accounts and finance team has to make that. And also you have to keep very high level of reporting with your higher management in that period, because the opportunities that are coming our way would get lost if they are not timely reported and not timely presented in a way that the higher management been able to make a decision on that. So with that, yeah, as I pointed out, that we discovered that our normal sales were not happening, but our B2C was flourishing. So in which markets they were flourishing, and which products were the shop sellers, you have to
And
make
that now,
quick analysis for that. On that,
yes,
you have to present that to management in a very timely way, so that we can arrange for the future supply chain as well, so that, and we can capitalize on this opportunity as well. So
yes,
this kind of things that we have learned during this period, that how to keep your operations running in the adverse situations, and how to keep your reporting level at a notch above from your normal days, because that's
yes,
where the management is willing to hear. They want to listen something positive in
yes.
all the gloomy things. And it's the job of the accounts finance professionals to see the silver lining behind all this gloom, and to provide some timely and solid information to the higher management.
So what I can extract out of the conversation we had is that the provision of timely and valuable information is the hallmark of the accounting and finance team, along with obviously arranging for the finances. I
Yeah.
talked with a friend of mine who was actually struggling in putting up all the covenants of the State Bank of Pakistan through a local bank, where the SBP
Mm.
provided this option for the companies whereby they could take a loan for the payroll. So that was also a very important area where the finance professionals actually had to work. So this was great, Imran.
Yeah.
So let's coming towards you, Shakoor. I'd because we are running very fast on the timeline. So I'd need a contribution from your side as well on the role of accountants in your company. I'm sorry, Shakoor, we're not being able to hear you. Probably your mic is off.
Yeah, yes. Is it okay now?
Yes.
ओके सो थैंक यू सो यस इस सिनेरियो के अंदर हम लोगों ने इसको किस तरह से मैनेज किया सो एज अ मेंशन अर्लियर दैट द प्रॉपर कैश फ्लो मैनेजमेंट वाज एन इशू तो हमने जैसे हम एआर की बात कर रहे थे तो हमने एआर के अंदर देखे कि हमारे कौन से ऐसे डीलर्स हैं जो कि
हाँ,
उनकी अर्ली
डिस्काउंट्स दिए
पेमेंट या
जा सकते हैं।
डिस्काउंट बनती है कैश डिस्काउंट बनती है but they are not but they are not able to pay. So इसमें हमने तो जैसे अभी हमने मार्च अप्रैल की बात की तो उसमें बहुत से ऐसे लोग थे जो कि एजिंग के अंदर आ गए थे एंड दे वर नॉट एबल टू पे बैक एंड उनको कैश डिस्काउंट जो है या फिर पेमेंट डिस्काउंट हम नहीं दे पा रहे थे बट हमने उन्हें कहा कि ओके हम आपकी ये 2 महीने की जो आपकी एजिंग के अंदर इन्वाइसेज आ रही हैं यस वी विल पे यू द अर्ली पेमेंट और द कैश डिस्काउंट इसके साथ साथ ही हमने चूँकि ओवरऑल जैसे मैंने कहा कि हमारे डीलर्स हैं ये आप बेहतर जानते हैं कि इनका बिल्कुल डीलर नेटवर्क डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नेटवर्क है सो वी आल्सो इंट्रोड्यूस अ पे लोड पैकेज एज वेल फॉर द बिग गन्स जो अच्छे डीलर्स थे उनके लिए हमने उन्हें कहा सपोज यस ओके इफ यू आर गोइंग टू पे 10 million yes we will pay you 2 or 3% of the total amount so yes ये हमने कैश फ्लो मैनेजमेंट के लिए हमने किया इन these 2 or 3 days in these 2 or 3 months देन वर्किंग कैपिटल मैनेजमेंट नॉर्मली हमारा ये होता था कि हम इन्वेंट्री जितनी हमारे प्रोडक्शन प्लान होता था उससे थोड़ी ज़्यादा परचेज करते थे प्रोक्योर करते थे बट वी हैव टू मिनिमाइज दैट इन्वेंट्री इज वेल इन्वेंट्री बाइंग फिर उसके बाद पेमेंट टर्म्स के ऊपर भी कुछ डिस्कशन हमने की विद आवर सप्लायर्स विद आवर वेंडर्स फॉर एग्जांपल इफ वी आर पेइंग to them for the payment term of 60 days then now we have negotiated with them for a payment term of 90 days something like this बल्कि इसमें मैं एक ऐड करना चाहूँगा हमारे एक चाइना के सप्लायर थे तो हमारा एक ऑर्डर अप्रोक्सीमेटली फाइनलाइज हो रहा था बट इट वाज गेटिंग डिले उसने खुद से ही पूछा कि व्हाई इट इज गेटिंग डिलेड सो व्हाट डू यू वांट फ्रॉम अस तो हमने उससे कोई डिस्काउंट है कुछ इस तरह का नहीं किया, बट उसने खुद से ही कहा कि आप मुझे बताइए कि हम किस तरह इस ऑर्डर को फुलफिल कर सकते हैं। सो दे गिव अस सम स्पेशल डिस्काउंट। सो यस, पेमेंट टर्म्स के ऊपर कुछ डिस्काउंट्स कुछ सप्लायर्स के ऊपर से। फिर हमने जैसे हमारे सेल के टारगेट होते हैं फॉर ईयर, फॉर सेमी एनुअल, क्वार्टर एंड मंथली बेसिस के ऊपर, हमने उनको रिविजिट किया, उनको रिशेड्यूल किया, हमने उसको रिवाइज किया अकॉर्डिंगली। उनके साथ साथ फिर हमने अपने जो है वो प्रोडक्शन प्लान्स को भी रिवाइज किया अकॉर्डिंग टू द सेल्स। सो यस, these are the measures that you have taken in this particular aspect.
Take it. Thank you. Thank you for the input, Abdul Shakoor. I was yet talking to another guy from the industry, and he said, Salam, that the finance team, what they did is that they actually took part with the supply chain department, and they held meetings with their vendors, whereby if they were paying their vendors after, say, a cycle of 50 days, they negotiated a period of 90 days with them. You see,
Exactly.
I mean, there is the part where the accountant would actually need to collaborate with the, say, with the supply chain department, actually sit with them and present the predicament to the vendors all by their own selves. So this is the part where their communication and interpersonal and networking skills also kick in. And when I talk about network, I mean to say that you are CFO of a company, and then one of the vendor companies where you need to pay, there also exists a CFO of the company. So you have this networking relationship with them whereby a CFO to CFO talk, an accountant to accountant talk, they very well understand the language of accountants and finance. And they very well understand the kind of misery they're going through actually. So this part was also a pivotal one to be played with. So moving towards the end of the session, I have a very important question which I would request to have quick answers from all the participants, and that is, K, we have talked about challenges. We have also talked as to how did we fare with it, how did the accountants came out to be the trailblazers of their industry, how did accountants actually put in their efforts in providing valuable information to the companies, switching to new modalities of doing business, and then once again reporting on top of it. So we have done a lot of work in this crisis. Yet we have to necessarily talk about the way forward as well. You are very well aware that e-commerce has staggered, uh, online sales has spurred, and all this is now taking us towards a new definition, a new concept, and that is of a digital accountant. So this is from the perspective of an accountant, and also rightly in the backdrop of escalating costs of electricity, fuel, digitalization. A guy was talking to me and he was saying, look, we are working with a foreign company, and previously uh, what we were producing was labor intensive, and now with the new SOPs applied, they want us to automate the entire production cycle, and they don't want any human intervention in there. Right? It's a challenge. Automation has probably come up as a necessary evil, and it would obviously need a lot of investment from the businesses side as well. So, Asdaf, I would require a quick answer from your side. How do you see things coming up in coming years? Because COVID and its impact is to stay there. So, what's the way forward in your opinion?
Aslan, you're
I'm
right.
sorry,
देखो,
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm apologies for that. I'd also like to add another thing. What new skills do you think an accountant would need to acquire in order to be relevant in this coming age?
देखो, digitization is the future now. All the big companies are now working on developing, digital platform, and so are we doing. We are also trying to actually build upon that. Right from the production floor to the top, how the information flows, how quickly can the information go, how accurate is the information, एंड इन रियल टाइम कैसे उसका फ्लो चल रहा है, तो वो तो देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो सेकंड डाउट्स. इमरान ने भी और शकूर ने भी बात की. हमने फॉर इंस्टेंस पेमेंट्स, ऑनलाइन पेमेंट्स ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड, वी एक्चुअली मेड ऑनलाइन पेमेंट्स टू आवर फार्मर्स जस्ट टू मेक श्योर कि बैंक्स में जाना चैलेंज होगा. all the suppliers, most of the suppliers were persuaded to come on online. So they were reluctant to, so they shared their bank details. So is the case with our customers. We ask them, okay, yeah, the payments have to be made online. So we have to move on that. Sales portal पे बहुत काम हुआ. Yeah, the customer can now input portal में जाए, they can place the order and they can get a feedback on where is their order, कब डिलीवर होगा, जब डिलीवर हो रहा है कौन से ट्रक के थ्रू डिलीवर हो रहा है, व्हेन विल इट रीच देम, पेमेंट की क्या हिस्ट्री है, ऑल. सो दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव टू वर्क अपॉन. when it comes to accountant, they have to work around the security. कैसे हो रही है information, सही है information system आपका जो है secured है, control जो है properly built है उसके अंदर. So these are some of the new areas where the accountants will have to work more to make sure जो भी डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म है वो जो है वो सही तरीके से बन रहा है, उसमें इंफॉर्मेशन एक्सट्रैक्ट सही हो रही है, उसकी सिक्योरिटी है, ये तो डिजिटल है. लेकिन हैविंग सेड दैट, और ये ई कॉमर्स है, यू राइटली सेड, जिसके पास अच्छी ऐप होगी और fully integrated होगी from the placement of the order, getting the payments, he will be the king tomorrow, really. अभी हमारी ये जो है आदि CODs के ऊपर है, ये they will have to develop good applications to support their business, और ये सारा आगे future भी online e-commerce का है. This pandemic has given such a huge opportunity for all these businesses to develop. And abhi जिस तरह इमरान ने बात की, people will place order directly to them and they will be shipping the product to the customers. So how effective and how good is your system, उसको देखना पड़ेगा. लेकिन एक और भी है opportunity digitization के अलावा, localization. There have been disruptions. How good can you do it? For instance, we were able to service our customers who were importing the goods and were not able to actually, because of the disruption. So they got the same product with similar functionality, and they at the end of the day realized that they can actually at the end of the day rely on a local supplier for meeting their needs. So that, लेकिन उसके अंदर आपने देखना है कि do you have the capacity to actually service them. Similarly, abhi India and Bangladesh is being impacted because of pandemic big way. So the exports would have been impacted. How can the Pakistani businessman take the opportunity, and if they have the capacity and the capability, maybe take the share from India and Bangladesh. So a lot of room for improvement.
Thank you, Asdaf. I can very well relate whatever you said with the ongoing business environment. Coming shortly towards you, Imran.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, Imran, there is a new phenomena in regard to mobile banking apps as well with the onset of pandemic. I was reading in a research that mobile banking app users have increased to 8.4 million in June 2020 from 3.3 million in 2008, 18. So you see, 8.4 million from 3.3 million, it is a big leap. तो आप क्या कहते हैं इसको देखते हुए?
Yeah,
Way
that
forward.
is a big number, and this number will obviously going to increase in the coming days. More and more operations, more and more business operations will go online, as we have observed in our business also. And talking about the role of accountants in the way forward in the new situation, uh, the traditional role of accountants that are typically of a number cruncher has to change now. What we have seen that accountants has to be a versatile person who is well versed in the operations of the business. You know, he has to take part in the basic operations of the system, like supply chain, like customer management, financing, all these stuffs. Because they cannot limit themselves to just making some data entries or making some reports on monthly basis or annual basis and doing that stuff. That
And
is not thing of the past.
so,
So going forward for the accountants, they have to be well versed in the technology, especially on the online technology that is going on, all the requirements of the digitalizations and the opportunity, and there are vast opportunities there. There is no limit to that. We have just now beginning to experience that.
So
But
this is
the
the new era,
you know
basically, the new normal, I
yeah
would say, and we would need to
yeah
adopt to
and
it.
yeah, we have to adopt it, and this is a great opportunity for the finance professionals to expand their horizon and be a very effective part of the business operations. And future is there for them.
So what I have been
For
able to
well,
get from this conversation is that the digital accountant concept is now materializing, and the accountants would need to hone their e-commerce related skills and the related accounting. So these are some skills which are a must-have. Very quickly, Abdul Shakoor, as you know, we are running out of time. I'd like to have your 2 cents on it.
Thank you, thank you. I must say, he who doesn't economize will have to apologize. The first thing in this pandemic, and I will must say that we should focus on the accountants. We should focus on the costs, uh, as we can control the small expenses. One thing, and another thing, I will also I will put more efforts on ऑनलाइन सेल्स इज वेल. जैसे इमरान साहब ने कहा कि अगर तो कोई बंदा ऑनलाइन सेल्स कर रहा है, ओके, वेल इनफ, लेकिन उसको न्यू मीन्स देखना चाहिए. जस्ट लाइक इन्होंने कहा कि वी गो फॉर द ईबे एंड द अमेजोन. सो पाकिस्तान के अंदर दिस इज अ न्यू कॉन्सेप्ट. सो अगर कोई ऑनलाइन पाकिस्तान के अंदर बिजनेस कर रहा है, सो उसको एक्सप्लोर करना चाहिए कि उसके पास कोई और न्यू मीन्स कौन से हैं जिसके ऊपर वो काम कर सकता है. सो इसी के साथ साथ ही शुड रीथिंक एंड अडॉप्ट करंट मार्केट ट्रेंड्स. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर कोई एक हमारे जैसी कंपनी है, कोई डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है, वो अगर ये देख सकते हैं कि हम अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स को मोर डाइवर्स या रिमोटली प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं, जहाँ पे हम पहले अपनी सर्विसेज या अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स नहीं पहुँचा सके थे, सो उनको वो देख सकते हैं कि हम वहाँ पे अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स को पहुँचा दें जहाँ पे हम पहले नहीं पहुँचा सकते थे. सो इसके साथ साथ ये भी हो सकता है कि हम ये भी हो सकता है कि हमें देखना पड़े कि वी हैव टू रीपोजिशन आवर ब्रांड्स. हम पहले कंपैरिजन किसी और के साथ कर रहे थे, सो इन न्यू नॉर्मल वी हैव टू रीपोजिशन आवर ब्रांड एज वेल. इसके साथ साथ आपने कुछ स्किल्स की बात की, व्हाट स्किल्स शुड अकाउंटेंट हैव. मैं इसमें ऐड करना चाहूँगा कि जैसे CFO or the finance guy, the role of the CFO or the finance guy has been changed, and now it is coming toward the business partner as well. And the skills that the accountant, the CFO must have may include integrated reporting or the ecosystem reporting. जस्ट लाइक हमने पहले बात की है कि जस्ट नंबर क्रंचर नहीं है एक CFO, बल्कि उसको पूरे डिपार्टमेंट्स के साथ इंटीग्रेशन करनी है. सो आपने कहा कि वो सप्लाई चेन के साथ मिलके डिस्काउंट्स निगोशिएट कर रहा है या क्रेडिट टर्म्स जो है वो निगोशिएट कर रहा है. सो दे शुड बी अ इकोसिस्टम कि वो जो अकाउंटेंट है उसको पूरे के पूरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का जो इकोसिस्टम है, वेदर दिस इज HR, whether this is procurement or something like this, उस उनको उस सब के साथ जो है वो मिल के एक चीज़ों को प्लान करना चाहिए. ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट इंटीग्रेशन, ये हमने जो है ई कॉमर्स की काफ़ी सारी बात की है, बट इसके साथ साथ अभी आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के ऊपर या BI के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा काम हो रहा है. सो द अकाउंटेंट शुड हैव द स्किल्स ऑफ BI. उसमें बहुत से सॉफ्टवेयर हैं हमारे पास वो, और फिर उसके साथ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है, क्योंकि अभी जो एनालिटिक्स के ऊपर काम हो रहा है वो बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है. सो एनालिटिक्स शुड बी देयर फॉर द अकाउंटेंट. सो आई बिलीव ये 2-3 स्किल्स हैं. एक तो जैसे मैंने कहा इंटीग्रेटेड रिपोर्टिंग है, इकोसिस्टम है, फिर आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है, बिजनेस इंटेलिजेंस है, एनालिटिक्स के ऊपर, इवन के डाटा एनालिटिक्स के ऊपर. डाटा इज़ नॉट अवर डोमेन, बहुत ज़्यादा जो है वो अकाउंटेंट्स की डोमेन नहीं है, बट उसको डाटा एनालिटिक्स का भी नॉलेज होना चाहिए कि डाटा जो है वो कहाँ कहाँ से आ रहा है और उसको किस तरह से वो एनालाइज कर सकता है.
Thank you very much, Shakoor. And I would like to say a heartfelt thank you to Asdaf Saab, Imran Saab, and Abdul Shakoor Saab. Today we have had a very fruitful discussion. I enjoyed it a lot, and I hope that our audience and our conversation leaders share the feeling as well. Thank you very much. Hopefully,
thank you,
inshallah,
Aslan.
uh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Imran. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Allah Hafiz.
अल्लाह हाफिज़.
Allah Hafiz.